Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows.
The ancient shamans of Siberia would go to the houses, huts, or yurts of the people in the community in celebration of the winter solstice and bring them these pre-dried mushrooms and often guide them through the experience. It was their yearly tradition. If the main door to the yurt was snowed over, which they often were during the wintertime, it is said that the shaman would enter symbolically through the secondary entrance. This just so happens to be the smoke hole in the roof or the chimney. The shaman, dressing in red and white and carrying a huge bag full of Amanita muscaria mushrooms that he had picked and dried during the previous season, enough for an entire community, would go door to door, bartering and selling his dried mushrooms. And how would the shaman travel? He used a sleigh, and the animals pulling the sleigh were not dogs or horses. The Siberian shaman used caribou, also known as reindeer, as they were indigenous to Siberia. You can often find chimney sweeps on old holiday postcards holding the Amanita muscaria mushroom. This is but a subtle hint to the connection of someone with the Amanita mushroom and a chimney.
So, like Santa Claus, who dresses in red and white, the shaman will dress in the colors of their sacred plants, and the Amanita-using shaman will dress in the red and white colors of the Amanita muscaria. And here we see the Pope dressing in something that looks quite a bit like the Amanita mushroom, and the snow adds a little extra effect, putting the white dots on the red cap. But popes and cardinals all throughout history have dressed just like this Amanita muscaria mushroom.
This mysterious old man somehow got himself intertwined into the Christian celebrations of the birth of their deity. In the Middle Ages, Santa was a shaman, and you can easily trace many similarities between the shamans of the past into our Christmas traditions of today. It is a common practice for people to stack their mushrooms in socks and hang them over the fireplace overnight to dry them out. But imagine that you're in a pine forest hunting mushrooms for your entire community. These mushrooms can grow to be quite large, and the sack that you use to carry the mushrooms in would get quite heavy. But knowing that these mushrooms should be dried before ceremonial ingestion, it would be wise to dry them out before carrying them home. This would allow you to carry more, and it would keep the mushrooms on the bottom of the sack from being crushed by the weight of the others. One good way to dry the mushrooms, as you continue to hunt for more, is to select a tree in a central location, and use its boughs as a basket to hold your freshly picked mushrooms, drying them in the sun as you search for more. This would look a lot like a decorated Christmas tree. The red and white mushroom Christmas ornaments are some of the oldest ornaments you can find.
The oldest of all Christmas tree decorations were edible. When the church adopted the Christmas tree, making it okay for Christians to have one and often placing one in the church as well, the ornaments on the tree were the Eucharist, the body of Christ. And the mushrooms are, as John Allegro pointed out, literally the flesh of God. And symbolically placing the Eucharist on the Christmas tree is a direct representation of placing the mushrooms on the Christmas tree. Mushroom begins as a spore. These spores are too small to be seen individually by the naked eye. We can see clusters of spores. But the spore is like the seed of the mushroom. And the part of the mushroom that we can see is the part of the mushroom used to spread the seed. It is the phallic portion of the mushroom. The actual body of the mushroom is the mycelium that is below the ground and attaching itself to the roots of the tree. So the mushroom attaches itself to the roots of the tree, and it cannot live without this tree. These mushrooms live in a symbiotic, mycorrhizal symbiotic relationship with the tree. And they help the tree, they feed the tree nutrients, and the tree feeds them nutrients. So they kind of live in harmony together. So these mushrooms are seen as the fruiting body of the tree. Just as nature needs a tree to grow apples, nature also needs a tree to grow these mushrooms. And just as an apple is something that is used by nature to spread a seed, so is the mushroom. So we see 3 stages of the mushroom's growth cycle here, and the mushroom appears to be going through an egg stage. A lot of mushrooms do this. The Amanita is one of them that appears to look like an egg in this stage of growth. And it's white, and on the right here you see the red cap of the mushroom peering through. And what it is breaking through is called the universal veil. So the universal veil tears to expose the red cap of the mushroom. And it is a universal veil. It covers the entire mushroom. The universal veil covers the entire mushroom. So as the veil tears, as the red mushroom cap gets bigger and bigger, the veil peels itself across the top of the mushroom, and it leaves these remnants, these veil remnants that leave white spots on the mushroom. So now this is the male portion of the mushroom. These stages of growth of the mushroom are considered male phallic, as you see the mushroom getting stronger and stronger. So the mushroom cap is now completely outside the veil of the mushroom, and the veil of the mushroom is now attached itself to the rim of the cap of the mushroom, and it is concealing the gills of the mushroom. And as the mushroom cap expands further and further and further, this universal veil cannot stretch any further, and it begins to tear, and this is seen as the circumcision of the mushroom.
As the mushroom expands further, the universal veil separates itself completely from the underside of the cap, falls, and hangs on the stalk or stipe of the mushroom like a skirt. The Amanita will continue to grow upward, flattening itself into a small table. One may wish to keep in mind that the Knights of the Round Table were, or are, if these knights ever evolved into the Knights Templars, the keepers and protectors of the Holy Grail. This is important to remember because the next stage in the growth cycle of this mushroom is the cup or grail stage. The mushroom cap continues to turn upward, and the cap becomes somewhat of a cup or chalice and will often hold the morning dew or rain. When the morning dew collects in the cup of the upturned mushroom cap, some of the psychedelic substances are drawn out of the mushroom and into the water. Consequently, the water is colored red like blood. Some of this bright red pigment from the mushroom's cap bleeds into the water. This, among other things, will fade the mushroom from a bright red into an orange-like or golden color. Although the psychedelic effects would not be nearly as intense as a belly full of mushrooms, one could literally take this golden-colored chalice-shaped mushroom and drink the blood of Jesus from the Holy Grail. Not only is this mushroom the literal Holy Grail, it is also the mythological phoenix. The phoenix is born from its ashes, but it will never live to leave its nest, for as it lifts its wings in attempt to fly, it bursts into flames and engulfs itself, leaving nothing behind but its own ashes, and the cycle continues. Here are the eggs in the nest, the colorful red eggs of the phoenix. The amanita resembles a red bird with wings. As the phoenix lifts its wings in an attempt to fly, it bursts into flames and engulfs itself. As the fungus quickly decomposes, it leaves nothing behind but its own ashes, the millions of mushroom spores, and the hair-like mycelia attached to the roots of the tree that grow underground. And as the cycle continues, as the mushroom spores serve as the seed of the mushroom, seemingly planting itself in the same location over and over.
These mushrooms have a symbiotic relationship with these trees. Conifer trees. They love conifer trees. Pine trees. They flourish under pine trees. And this mushroom is the hidden mushroom. Hidden eggs. You can see here this big bright red mushroom is obvious on the screen, but just below it is one that's hidden. So you have to have a good eye. Depending on the season and depending on the area, these mushrooms can be gold as well. So they are the golden egg. The golden eggs of alchemy. The Amanita muscaria mushroom. Real gold is only a materialistic item that will get you nowhere in the afterlife. But this shamanic out-of-body experience is preparation for actual death. It's training for that crossover period from this reality into whatever is our next reality. And here is Mithra standing on top of this cosmic egg, or the primordial mound. He has an entwined serpent around his body, making the caduceus and symbolizing drugs. Mithra is the drug itself, the mushroom. The Amanita muscaria mushroom is also born from a primordial mound. Mithra has tail feathers like those that the mushroom does, the annulus, and he also has wings atop his shoulders representing the upturned gills of the mushroom. Continuing with this symbolism of the mushroom, we find the divine hermaphrodite, polar opposites combined into one entity, usually male and female, with wings upon its back. And it's this personified dualistic deity that leads us into the rebus, or the Riri, two things. Oftentimes the rebus will be seen with a cup in one hand and a serpent or an Ouroboros in the other. It is standing upon Mercury and Venus, with serpents in the cup representing the poison or the drugs contained in the cup.
The Amanita muscaria mushroom is seen as both male and female sex organs of its personified deity. Here you can see the stalk of the mushroom penetrating the cap in the act of divine coitus. The male and female portions of the mushroom consist of a breast and a yoni for the female, and a single testicle and penis for the male. By splitting the mushroom open in its earlier growth stages, the act of sex is blatant. All that is missing are the bodies of the god and goddess. In the Hindu myth, Shiva is a hermaphrodite. Like the mushroom, Shiva has a penis, one testicle, and a breast. In the book of Genesis, Eve was created from the rib of Adam. Actually, at this point, Adam is a hermaphrodite. Male and female he created them, and blessed them, and he called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. Adam, being male, represents the mushroom in its earlier phallic-like growth stages, while Eve, the female, is the womb-like opening of the gills. The reverse side, the single breast of the cap, is literally the Eve of the mushroom. When the Amanita's cap separates to form the eave or canopy, it figuratively pulls a rib out of the stalk or stipe of the mushroom. The mushroom's universal veil tears away from the ribs and drops down, forming a skirt or apron. The eave of the mushroom appears to be born from the rib or from the side of the male portion of the mushroom. Because this is the portion of the mushroom that is most often consumed, this is also the portion of the mushroom that provides enlightenment. The female provides enlightenment, and the female comes from the rib of the male. But there is another story in the Bible of enlightenment coming from the side of man. Not only is Eve born of the rib of Adam, but Jesus hanging on the cross is lanced in the rib, and out of his side comes the blood that is collected into the Holy Grail. So out of the rib comes the enlightenment once again. The Canterbury Psalter from 1147 has 12 segments representing the 12 signs of the zodiac. Each segment is a representation from the different parts of the creation of the world epic described in the book of Genesis. In the top right segment we see Jesus, or God, as the Lord of magical plants. The red mushroom on the right is clearly the Amanita muscaria. The Amanita is said to produce the quickening of the spirit. The next one is obviously another mushroom, but it is blue. This indicates silici mushrooms, which are said to open the third eye. Next may be a depiction of a Syrian rue pod, shaped as a mushroom, which happens to match this in color as well as a similar structure. Syrian rue, or Paganum harmala, is known to increase the effects of other compounds and also possesses other qualities. On the left is a depiction of an opium poppy, also shaped as a mushroom, and due to the euphoria it induces, it helps one to relax enough to let go in order to fully experience the visionary state. It helps one withstand the intense experience without the constant urge to make it stop, which is not an option, by the way. Another panel depicts the scene in the Garden of Eden with the serpent. Notice that the serpent has the entwined staff, which is actually the stem of a mushroom. It looks a bit like the Amanita muscaria, although it does appear to depict some type of silici mushroom, or other types of mushrooms as well. At the very top of the center tree, or serpentine mushroom, may be seen little mushrooms inside the cap.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows.